connect, man. I see Raleigh, North Carolina's in the house, man. I see it. Thank you so much for joining. Raleigh, North Carolina's in the house. And so, man, thank you so much for joining, man. We're going to have our guest, Terrence Lester, to join in any minute now. But while we're waiting on him to join in real quick, just go ahead and type in the comment line some of the things that inspire you, some of the things that help, take your life to the next level, some of the things that you believe help move you to the next level. Just go ahead and type some of those things in, man, and so we can just try to get to know our audience and who we're dealing with, because we're getting ready to go live with some content, man, that's gonna bless you and it's gonna help you. I promise you, you're gonna be inspired and you are going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. So I'm looking in the comment section. Okay, I see I'm Raleigh, North Carolina in the house. Okay, I see that. Okay, Atlanta, Georgia. All right, Florida, I see you in the house. Okay, awesome. I see you. 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 Well, we're getting ready to bring our special guest on in just a minute. He's getting ready to join us right quick. And so, man, listen, you're going to be inspired. You are going to be informed. And I promise you, man, that you will not regret joining us, man. So get ready to be inspired as I get ready to bring on our special guest who goes by the name of Terrence Lester. He is founder of Love Beyond Walls, man, an incredible organization right here in Atlanta, Georgia, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, just doing some amazing, incredible humanity work, not only right here in Atlanta, but across the globe, across the nation. And man, Terrence is going to come on and tell you more about his story and how he has a heart to eradicate homelessness, not only in the city of Atlanta, but in America and in this world. And so listen, man, can you just do me a favor and get some virtual claps to Mr. Terrence Lester as he joins us real quick. Mr. Terrence Lester, as he joins us real quick. Terrence, what's up, man? How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, Al? How are you? Dr. Hollie is the correct title,
Too
man.
kind, bro. Too kind, man. Listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time to join us, man, on the Inspire Lab. Hey, listen, I know, hey, when you do interviews with NBC, ABC, you kind of all over the world, man. So to take the time out to join us on the Inspire Lab News Live, man, I really appreciate it. And it shows your heart, man, your heart of humility, man. So I appreciate you so much, bro.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for having me and considering me to be a part of the Inspire Lab, bro.
Yes.
I love the name.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. So like I said, man, our goal is simple to, inspire, inform, and invigorate, the human spirit, man, to live their best life and live life at the highest level. And man, in so many ways, Terrence, you're doing that with what you do with Love Beyond Walls and incredible work and the service that you're doing, with humanity, not only in the city of Atlanta, but also around the globe, man. Could you just kind of share with our listeners and those who have joined in with us, can you just kind of share with them real quick what Love Beyond Walls is and how did it come about?
Yeah, for sure. So Love Beyond Walls is a nonprofit organization that I founded with the focus of advocating on behalf of people experiencing homelessness and poverty. But part of the mission of the organization is to affirm the dignity of those without homes or living with a low income by doing things like giving a voice. Is really huge because oftentimes we say people are voiceless. Well, that's not the case. People aren't voiceless. Their voices have been silenced, right?
Wow.
Visibility, which is another huge issue in our country as it relates to people experiencing poverty and homelessness. People are overlooked and oftentimes go unseen. Community is another important aspect of what we do because we like to, what I consider crowd loving. We've heard of crowdfunding, but crowd loving is this idea of bringing a community of people around people who've been socially excluded to ramp up their social capital because oftentimes people living on the streets or living in poverty are at a social deficit. But then there's things like sheltering and some of the basic services that we offer from our center. We've helped people recover their identification cards, reunite with family members. We just helped this young guy who was not too long ago, man. He was 27 living on the streets.
Yeah.
We reunited him with his family up in Chicago. So we
Awesome.
do a number of creative things, but the most important thing, man, is walking alongside people, trying to help them to achieve self-sufficiency.
Man, I like that, man. Thank you so much for sharing with that, man. And I like how you said, community, man, and how community is important because a lot of times, people who've experienced homelessness, man, feel like they lack community because they were once, engaged in communities, right? And a lot of times, when people see someone homeless, they think that, hey, they've been like that their whole life, something they did to get them there. Sometimes they have no idea of the stories that people have, lived through and been through to get there. And so how they were once a part of community. Can you speak to the issue of how you've helped some people who have experienced homelessness, who came from, great backgrounds and had great careers and how life just kind of happened? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure, man. One, just I definitely agree with what you were saying. I think in this country, specifically the U.S., we have criminalized what it means to be poor and
Yeah.
criminalized what it means to experience homelessness in this country. The criminalization has arisen from ordinances and laws and even political rhetoric that we oftentimes hear from politicians, even with like the whole welfare queen back when
Yeah.
Reagan was in office, using people as political pawns to create these false narratives about people who are experiencing either poverty or homelessness. And so, with these false perceptions, right, they create the distance that we see. And it creates this, what you were alluding to, Dr. Holly. We put people in buckets, we label them, right?
Yeah.
And when we label people, we limit them, right?
Oh,
And not
wow.
realizing that they are people with a story, they have a background, they have a place of origin, right? And oftentimes we forget that. Everybody who arrives in the plight of homelessness specifically didn't arrive there. They didn't take the same mode of transportation to arrive in this plight. Some people have
Yeah.
lost jobs, and I think people can identify with that because of COVID-19 right now. It's over
Yeah.
26 million people who filed for unemployment. I just saw an article today. A
Yeah.
journalist was interviewing people who are getting food boxes for the first time,
Wow.
literally in their cars and crying, saying, "I never thought it would have been me." People
Wow.
have had the loss of a loved one. Shout out to all the families who are grieving right now, who've
Yes.
lost loved
Indeed.
ones that have impaired income. Some people have fled domestic violence
Yeah.
or, had an illness strike, hence COVID-19, and they're no longer able to work a job.
Yes.
Some people, just enter into this plight in so many different ways. I think about the number of kids right now across the country who are
Yeah.
living in urban communities, hence Urban Inspire, right? Who don't
Yeah.
even have access to laptops to take their classes. And so basically what I'm talking about is there are many ways to arrive in this plight, and we can't put people in buckets and label them because when we do, we limit them. Now, to answer your question, yeah, man, I've worked with several individuals who have become depressed.
Mhm.
I remember working with this one individual, got depressed and couldn't function on his job.
Yeah.
Lost some things and ended up, on the streets for
Yeah.
5 years.
Mhm.
Had a degree in everything. Could rattle off more books than I probably ever read. A bright and
Wow.
smart individual, most articulate brother I've ever met, but he fell on hard times. And the
Mhm.
one thing that we found that he lacked the most, and going back to your point from earlier, and I'll be quiet, is that he
You
lacked
good.
community. He lacked community.
Black
It
community.
was the community that we surrounded him with that built up enough courage and confidence that he needed to stand on his own again. See, most times we think that people, can adopt this survival mentality where they can do it all themselves, right? We
Yeah,
live with this false sense of, this self-made mentality when in actuality, none of us are self-made.
that's right.
And this moment in time in history is actually teaching us how much we need each other. I
That's right.
think Martin Luther King alluded to the world house, the global village, that
Yeah,
we're all interconnected, that I need you, Dr. Holly. You
yeah,
need me. We need each other. And going back to your point, and I'll be quiet, the base and the foundation of inspiration is connection.
that's right. Man, thank you so much, man, for sharing that, man. That's so great, Terrence. Now one of the things that you said, man, that I kind of want to kind of pivot and just hang our hat right there for a second is this word community and how it's so important on how some people they end up labeled, and so because they end up labeled, people embrace them a whole different way. And so Dietrich Bonhoeffer, man, who was one of my favorite theologians, he once made this statement, and one of the quotes he said that, man, I just kind of live by. He said, "People who love their idea of community will lose it,
Mm.
while people who love community will gain it." And so, man, like that was so powerful in so many ways, because I think we live in a world where we always look at this idea of how something should be, or how it should happen, and how it should take place. And the moment that a community or whatever it is doesn't look like that, then we kind of put in what we want to do to make it look like that. And so by doing that, we end up losing what it is we're trying to embrace. And so, can you quickly just speak to how it is that love beyond walls, instead of trying to, like, for instance, I know without a shadow of a doubt, something you have done that's been in the news and the headlines since COVID-19 has broken out, is you have been setting up stations, hand wash stations, for those who are homeless, so that they can keep their hands clean and have proper sanitation while they are, living homeless and things of that nature. So, in other words, can you speak to how Love Beyond Walls um, embraces the idea of not trying to create their own community, but embrace the community of where people are to meet them where they are?
Yeah, it's a great point, man. um, I had the privilege of sitting on a panel with Father Greg Boyle,
Yeah,
and a similar question arose out of the crowd, and we both can kind of like had this common answer of, it's not necessarily that we are doing anything for other people. God has graced us to receive people, and I think we are all, um, you
yeah,
know, graced to receive people. And a
mm-hmm.
part of that receiving has to do with proximity. Are
Yeah,
you willing and daring enough to be proximate to other people? Right now, obviously, we are physical distancing from one another. I don't like the term social distancing because we're still encouraging people to stay social with tools like these. But we are physically distancing from one another. I
mm-hmm.
think social distancing speaks to the idea of social isolation, right?
Yeah,
And when you're experiencing homelessness, like many people have been social distancing or experiencing that long before the coronavirus, right? And our community has always been about being proximate to people on the margins. And when you're proximate to people, proximity changes things. It changes your heart, but it also establishes a relationship between you and the person that you are receiving, right?
yeah,
And so, because we've been in proximity with individuals, we know their hurts and their fears and their cries and their concerns. We know what they are dreaming, etc. We have community with people. We have received people, and people have received us. And
mm-hmm.
out of that relationship, we started to hear cries from people like, "I'm afraid I'll contract COVID-19 because I don't have anywhere to wash my hands."
Yeah,
It takes trust to even admit to something like that. We heard other individuals say things like, they keep telling us to wash our hands. I keep hearing we're supposed to wash our hands, but the libraries are closed. Public restaurants are closed. Places that I would normally go are closed. And out of our response to the relationship and the care and concern for our neighbor, because the neighbor doesn't necessarily have an address, have to have an address.
That's right.
We consider ourselves interconnected with our neighbor, and we wanted to ensure that the whole community has access to this basic necessity that other parts of the community have access to.
Man, that's great, great, man. A couple more questions, man. We're gonna get you out of here, man, because we know, you have a lot of things going on. But talk about, the whole community access thing. And could you just kind of share with our listeners, man, on like that you're a gifted brother, man. There are a million and one things you could be doing. I know it, brother. I know because I've been knowing you for a minute, man. I know you're a prolific writer, prolific author, man. Speaker, man. Like you can be like in the limelight in the front, man. But what is it that inspired Terrence Lester to say, man, I'm going to serve and work with the least of these? Like
Yeah.
trying to be in the limelight. I'm not trying to be on the stage. Like I'm trying to be in the background and help those who don't have a stage. Like what inspired Terrence Lester to say, I want to work with those who are homeless, those who've been outcast, those who have faced the social ills of society and had their people turn their back on them? What made you want to do that? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. As you were talking, I can feel chills on my arms and emotion.
Wow.
I always go back to that moment that God rescued me, when I was outcasted, when I was broken, when I was confused, when I was isolated, when people were social distancing from me long before a disease, and God stepped into my life and radically embraced me.
Wow.
And I'm talking about the type of embrace that restores, the type of the embrace that redeems, but also the type of embrace that is grounded in the good news of our God, right?
Yeah.
When I came in contact with Christ, man, it radically changed my life. And I always go back to that moment. I don't care if I'm on USA Today or NBC, it doesn't matter. I always go back to that moment, and it reminds me of how I was brought into the fold, right? I was extended God's grace. I was extended that table. And so that lives with me every single day. It grounds me, but it also has formed these lenses that I see through. That when I see other people who are excluded, that need to be invited to the table, that
Yeah.
need to experience God's grace and mercy, and that radical love that transforms, man, I want to share that. And I would be remiss if I lived my entire life only to receive that grace, amass a bunch of stuff, go to my grave, never having shared with any other person what God is able to do. And I say that passionately, without any hesitation, because when you look at my storyline and where I've come from, it's nothing but the grace of God, bro.
Praise God. I like that, man. I was reading and studying the other day, man, and one of the things I came across, man, was a lot of people like to claim that they're self-made, but I
Yeah.
don't believe there's no such thing as self-made. Like somebody helped you along the way, somebody inspired you, somebody lent you a hand, somebody did something to help get you out of the miry muck, man, to get you up to the next level, man. And so I don't believe in self-made. I believe in grace-made. And so, man, yeah, that's my thing, man. Grace-made over self-made, man, because where we are, man, it's just a whole bunch of prevalent grace. In other words, that prevalent grace is that grace where God meets us. So it's almost like a lot of times we think that when we show up, God shows up, like God shows up through us. But we got to understand that when we talk about prevalent grace, in other words, whenever we show up, God has already been there working. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
wow.
So
That's good.
yeah, he's already been there setting things up, man, and opening doors and setting things in motion, man. And so if we serve a God who's been moving and doing things like that, well, then, man, in so many ways, Like there's no such thing as self-made. Like we're all in so many ways grace-made. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because God's grace has went before us, man. And man, and I can see that how His grace has moved in your life, man, and some of the things that you've been doing. And so, man, just to end our interview and our time together, man, thank you for sharing with us about what Love Beyond Walls is doing, man, to bring attention to the homeless epidemic. In many ways, we have this, this pandemic, man, of COVID-19, and why this is a pandemic that's hurting a lot of people. In many ways, homelessness is something that America, has not grabbed a hold of, or something that we have not embraced fully to try to create a culture of change around it. So, with you being one of the front liners, one of the leaders, in this generation, to give the homeless a voice and help create vision for what it looks like, man, to give everybody a seat at the table, to make sure that everybody can get a plate and eat, right? What would you say one or two things that our culture needs to embrace and needs to do in order to create that culture of shift, change, and humanity when it comes to inviting the homeless and everybody to the table?
Yeah. First thing is the realization that we're all poor in some way. You're a theologian yourself, man. Some materially, some immaterially, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that common thread of impoverishment, no matter where you find yourself, we can all relate to. And if we agree on that, then we also understand that it goes back to that grace factor, that we are all in need of God's grace. The thing that that disturbs me the most is people who find themselves who may be impoverished, right, emotionally, spiritually, whatever your impoverishment is, immaterially, look down on people who have the physical poverty that they can see, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when we have this realization, we begin to operate in humility.
Mm.
I can see myself in this person. We have this shared humanity. I'm humbled enough to respect the Imago Dei, this person that God created, and
Mhm.
love that person and affirm their dignity. But
Yeah.
secondly, man, I think that we need to be people need to be real with themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not out here trying to be anything that I'm not, bro. I
Yeah.
found my
So,
lane and I want to be authentically me, right?
yeah.
And we
Yeah.
have too many imposters, too many people
Talk
trying
to us.
to, ride somebody else's wave,
Yes, sir.
using clout for influence. And
Yeah.
that's not the way forward. The way
Yeah.
forward is to really ground yourself in what
Hmm.
God has called you to do.
Hmm.
Find out what you're good at, your talents, your gifts, how you are wired, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And stop trying to emulate somebody who
Hmm.
probably doesn't even know where they're going, or they're probably emulating somebody else.
That's good.
See, the
Yeah.
thing that sets you apart
Hmm.
is when you embrace your originality,
I
right?
like that. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
move away from being a copy.
Yeah.
Author John Mason says is this way, and I'll close.
Yeah.
If you were born an original, why would you want to die a copy?
Yeah, man, that's good, man. Terrence Lester, man, I appreciate you, bro, for sharing with us, man, on this evening, man, and thank you, man. So once again, what we try to do here, man, is just provide content that can invigorate, inspire, and inform. I think you've been informed tonight. I know you've been inspired. I know your mind has been invigorated to live your life on the next level. So Terrence, man, thank you for sharing with us, man. And we're gonna leave on that note, man. Hey, if you were born original, why would you want to die a copy? And so I would say, hey, that's heavy, man. I would simply say as we end. So, in other words, last word, Terrence, in order to be inspired, before you can be inspired to do anything great, you first have to be inspired to be yourself.
Yes.
Amen. Hey, so thank
Period.
you so much, T. Lesson, man. Hey, can you tell the people, man, how to connect with you, man? If they want to donate, man, to Love Beyond Walls, whatever the case may be, man, could you just give a shout out to how they can connect with you and join God in what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to look us up, you can go to lovebeyondwalls.org and give to our campaign, Love Sinks In. And if you want to follow us on our social media, it's Love Beyond Walls. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome, man. Hey, Terrence, man, thank you so much for taking the time out. I appreciate you, man. Give your family my best, man. And
Same,
I'm praying
bro.
for you, man. And I'm doing everything I can, man, to see you go to the next level. God bless, man. Love you, bro.
I love you too, bro. Peace.
All right, peace, man. Thanks.